Okay. So sixth verse. हंसैरप्यति लोभनीय गमने हारावलीम् उज्ज्वलाम् इन्दोलद्युतिहीरपूरिततरे हेमाङ्गदे कङ्कणे मञ्जीरौ मणिकुण्डले मकुटमप्यर्धेन्दुचूडामणिम् नासामौक्तिकम् अङ्गुलीयकटकौ काञ्चीमपि स्वीकुरु. So this is the sixth verse. From here you notice the Panchadasakshari, the second group of the Panchadasakshari is starting here. It starts with Ha. So the last five that we saw, the last five verses that we saw was the first group of the Panchadasakshari. And as we discussed the last time, that is called the Vagbhavakuta. It refers to the face of Devi. And now the next six verses will be called Madhyakuta. Madhyakuta, which refers to the middle part of her body, which is the neck up, down until the waist. Okay. But this is, as I said, in reference to Devi's form. But here, Adi Shankara is not doing this in that structure. He is not only describing the face in the first five and the body in the second six and the leg portion in the next four. No, he's not doing that. He is going in the sequence of the Shodasha Upachara Puja. Shodasha Upachara Puja is the 16 different kinds of puja that you do to a deity, to invoke. So he is the initial first five we saw, we invoked her, we invited her, we made her sit in one place, then we did Pada Puja to her, gave her a bath, gave her Dupam, Deepam and all that. And then now we are trying to put ornamentation on her. Okay. There's one more thing I was wanting to point out. As we were chanting the first five verses, this occurred to me. How the first three verses are referring to Srishti Sthiti Laya. And it's very beautiful. See, somehow some of these ideas are intertwined in the works. It will not be very evidently visible. But a lot of times these works, if you dwell enough upon it, different things of this kind will start revealing itself. Every time you listen to it, you'll find something interesting, something beautiful, a different dimension will kind of reveal, which possibly was at that state of mind of the composer. And Adi Shankara being the composer of this work, what was his state of mind? Because he was visualizing this. We have to understand that he was visualizing this, that he is doing all of this Shodashopachara Puja or some form of puja to Devi in his mind. He is invoking her, he is visualizing the form and doing all of that in the mind. So the state that he was, it's very difficult for us to recognize what that state would have been, right? For that matter, any other composers, any of the works that we have taken thus far, to actually be able to relate to or connect with, it requires a fair amount of introspection, reasonable amount of spending time with that work in contemplation. Not just introspection, but contemplation. We have to go slightly deeper, not just think about it, but try to experience it. The anubhava has to dawn. Anubhava has to come. Now, so here, if you look at the first three, you look at the verse. The first one starts with Kallololla Sitamrtabdhilahari Madhye Virajan Mani Dvipe Kalpakavatika Parivrite Kadambavatyujjvale Ratnastambha Sahasra Nirmita Sabha Madhye Vimanottame Chinta Ratna Vinirmitam Janani Te Simhasanam Bhavaye. Janani. So take the word Janani in the first one. Then the next one you go Enankanala Bhanu Mandala Lasat Shri Chakra Madhye Sthitam. बालार्कद्युति भासुराम करतलैहि पाशांकुशौ बिभ्रतीं चापं बाणमपि प्रसन्नवदनां कौसुम्भवस्त्रान्वितां तां त्वां चन्द्रकलावतं समकुटां चारुस्मितां भावये. So you take the word sthitam here in the second word. So the first one is Janani, the second is Sthitam. And then you take the third one, Ishanadi Padam Shivaika Phalakam Ratnasanam te shubham padyam kunkuma chandanaadi bharitaihi arghyam saratnakshataihi shuddhairachyamaniyakam tava jalaihi bhaktya maya kalpitam karunyamrtavaridhe tadakhilam santushtaye kalpata. So here you take the word Shiva. So first is Janani, then Sthitam, then Shiva. So you look at the way he is constructed. One way of looking at it could be Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. These are the first three functions of Devi. Panchakritya Parayana. She is Srishtikartri, Brahma Rupa, Goptri, Govinda Rupini, Samharani, Rudra Rupa, Tirodhana Karishwari, Siva, Sadashiva Anugrahada, Panchakritya Parayana. So this is what appears in the Lalita Sahasranam, right? So the first three are Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. The three main functions of Devi are mentioned in the first three. Pralayam. And if possibly we look at the next two verses, it might reveal the Tirodhana and the Anugraha aspects. Right? Probably if you look at it, I'm just saying, because these are the five functions that she has. Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Tirodhana, Anugraha. Tirodhana is concealing and Anugraha is revealing. So the first five verses, somehow Adi Shankara has brought about the five functions of Devi. The Panchakriti. So that is one interlace. So as we always look at these, there are multiple layers that come out in such works, right? So that's probably one way of looking at this. Now, as we move on to the sixth one, so we said the first five was again the Panchadasakshari, the Vagbhava Kuta. It ended with Hrim. Starts with Ka, ends with Hrim. And we say Hrim is the Shiva Shakti Tattva. In all the three, you will see the first set of five, the next, which is set of six, and the four. Each of them will end up with a Hrim. And Hrim is about Shiva and Shakti coming together. Okay. And then the Ha starts here. So the first one started with Ka. Ka is Kakara Rupa Kalyani. Those who know Trishati would know this. Kakara Rupa Kalyani. So she is Kakara Rupa. Devi is Ka, the form of Ka. Ha is essentially the form or the sound of Shiva. So the first set starts with Devi, ends with Shakti. Starts with Shakti, ends with Shiva Shakti. The next one, Ha, starts with Shiva, ends with Shiva Shakti. It will start with her, end with Hrim. So Hamsaihi. So how does it start? Hamsaihi api atilobhaniya gamane hamsairapyatilobhaniya gamane haravalim ujjwalam hamsaihi api atilobhaniya gamane. So your walk or your gait, the way you walk, O mother, is atilobhaniya. Atilobhaniya means it is so much pleasing to look at. Lobhaniya is to endearing. It is very endearing. It causes a lot of joy in my heart. Oh no, sorry, not lo. So lobha is essentially it causes in comparison it causes a form of jealousy. Ati lobha means it is what is jealous. The hamsa or the swan, it has a certain beautiful way to walk or move in the water, right? And that apparently is very beautiful to look at. But that walk is, it falls short in its beauty in comparison to your walk. Hamsaihi api ati lobhaniya gamane. Your gamanam or your walking puts to shame the walk or the gait of a swan. Hamsairapi ati lobhaniya gamane haravalim ujjwalam. So here he is now trying to explain the different ornamentations that are put on Devi. So because Devi has been now brought, we've done all the we've given her done Pada Puja, we've given her a shower, a bath, and all that. We've given her a bath, and now we are dressing her up. Okay, when you're dressing her up, he's saying she is so beautiful to look at. So here it is almost like the devotee is becoming almost like a lover. Okay, this can happen in devotion, right? This can happen in devotion when there is a certain level of devotion that sets in. There is a love that develops for the ishta devata, like how Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was in love with Kali. He was literally in love with Kali, right? He would feed her, he would take care of her, he would bathe her, he would do alankaram to her and all of that. Nobody does that to a mother, right? So, but what is this love? Although he would refer to as Mother Kali, Ma, and all that, he would do all of this with an utmost love of possibly the love of a Vatsalya Bhava, right? Of a mother having a love for a child. Although here Ramakrishna Paramahamsa considers himself as the child and she is the mother, but he is taking care of her in the most endearing way. So this love allows you to go and do all kinds of ornamentation to Devi. This is what you would do to a small child, right? In your household, also when you have a small child, when you look at the child, சில பேர் வீட்லலாம் the way they make up the child, it'll appear like torture. What the child is undergoing is possibly a torture. And the child wouldn't have asked of any of that. But the parents do it or the mother does it because she wants to see the child so decked up, ornamented. A child will be crying, I don't want this, I don't want that. Put lipstick, put kaadla tonga uttu thalaiல no chudamani vechi kanda.
Bothering me சொல்றது. This is bothering me அப்படினு.
Bothering ஆமா. அது கடைசில அது வந்து சந்திரமுகி மாதிரி ஆயிடும். She'll pull everything out. But that is the correct, from mothering to bothering. So but the mother nevertheless does it. And so in this case, that is the love that the devotee or the bhakta has with the ishta, and the compassion of that ishta allows the devotee to do whatever you want to do. So now you look at this verse, he is going on doing a lot of ornamentation. Haravalim ujjwalam, so he's putting a haravali. Hindoladyuti hira puri tatare, he's putting a hara which is it is swinging. Hindola dyuti. Dyuti means shining bright, and it is swinging. Hemangade Kankane. He's putting golden anklets or armlets. Manjiro Manikundale. So he's putting the kundala. Makutam api ardhendu chudamanim. So you're putting a makuta or a crown, which is like and a chudamani, which is like a ardha chandra, like an ardha chandra. And then nasa moktikam anguliye katakau. So putting a nose ring, putting finger rings, and putting a girdle, kanchi api swikuru. எல்லாம் எடுத்துன்னு வந்திருக்கேன், ப்ளீஸ் போட்டுக்கோ. ஸ்வீகுரு, ப்ளீஸ் டேக் இட். And whatever he does in his imagination, even Devi does not have control over it. By means of requesting, he's saying, please take it, Svikuru. And in Sanskritam, Kalpaka would know, there is this, when you say something like a kuru, it is both an instruction and a request.
Lot lakara.
Lot lakara. Thank you, Mama.
Karotiva nava.
So when you use this lakara, the lot, it's called the lot lakara, it can be used for both. It's like a request or an instruction. So he's saying that please accept or do it. Right? And that the taking it, Svikuru, you can say that please take it, or you say take it with instruction. So it could be both. So the point here is, in this particular verse, what Adi Shankara is trying to, what his experience possibly would have been, is that he is going through this beautiful form of Devi that is now appearing in front of him in his mind. He is now visualizing that this form is moving and coming so beautifully. Hamsairapi ati lobhaniya gamane. Hamsairapi ati lobhaniya gamane. So she is moving and coming with such beautiful gait. And then he is now doing the whole ornamentation to her, and Chamatta, she is receiving all that. So from the head, from the chudamani, to the nose ring, to the finger ring, to the hand, the armlets, to the girdle in the waist, to the haravali, all of this, the bhakta or the sadhaka is now putting it on her. And if you look at this, why would somebody want to do it? Is, as we said, this whole work is about developing this joy in devotion. And in the process, he is also instilling the bijaksharas in us. The bijaksharas of the Panchadasakshari, because only initiates can do the mantra japa of the bijaksharas. He is offering this particular work as a way for those who are not initiated into it. You can still, in your own loving way, chant, visualize. Yet when you're saying ka, e, il, each of these aksharas, when you're saying, you are, without consciously knowing, you are also chanting those bijaksharas. Right? And when do you remain in the joy of devotion? When you do things that are beautiful, that saundarya, that adds to saundarya. Right, I've heard of this story. Necklace to Goddess Kamakshi, and Periva says that, keep a velvet to cover her neck. Yeah. This happens even in the north to Krishna. If you go and see, Krishna is all, the way they deck up Krishna is so beautiful. When it's winter, they'll put winter clothing to him. They'll put, scarf and woolen material and all that. So this way of worship is essentially, and we do this all during Navaratri, all the 9 nights, the 9 days of Navaratri, we do this. We deck up Devi in various forms. We bring children, Bala, Kanya, we deck them up. Because Devi essentially, and we've discussed about this, we look at Shiva as this this substratum, as this static presence. Devi is about expression. Anything that you express is Devi. So if you have for example, if you have a lot of ornaments and you keep it in the cupboard, what is it for? If you don't take the ornaments, wear it on appropriate times. Of course, not like some people who wear 5 kilos of gold and go to marriages. Not like that. But appropriate times and appropriate dressing, you use the ornamentation, the ornaments that you have, so that that display is Devi. That display is Devi. So you are celebrating Devi by doing that. Now, obviously, you can't continue to do this at all times, at all ages, etc. You do this mentally then. You visualize and do it mentally to Devi. And in that process, when in this phrase, in this verse, you don't need to go and buy from Malabar jewelry, right? You don't have to buy any of this from anywhere. You can just visualize. All it takes is to visualize and just think that you have all of this. You are completely filled with all of this kind of ornamentation, and you are putting it on her. Right? So this is, as we chant this, we think about that kind of an engagement, because when you engage like this with the form, with Devi, with the form, again, it creates a greater affinity. It creates a certain bond, a certain liking and a love relationship that is generated. That is one. Other thing is the word Hamsa is a very important word. We have discussed about this word in several other works, even in Kalidasa's Shamala Dandakam, etc. We have spent some time discussing the word Hamsa. And Hamsa, we know that one is there is a reference made to a swan, which is a mystical swan. And always in the spiritual traditions, Hamsa is that bird which is supposed to be able to take out milk from water, which means extract milk and leave water behind. Because all milk, to some extent, there is some water. So this Hamsa bird can pull that out and is used as a reference to show how Viveka should operate in us. That is the way Viveka should be. We should be able to differentiate between that which is permanent and that which is temporary. So you look through the world and you notice that all of this is temporary, but there is that permanent presence or element behind all of this. And Hamsa also kind of indicates to that. In fact, one of the ways Hamsa is also looked at is Aham Saha. I am he. Aham Saha. I am he. So you break Hamsa, it becomes Aham Saha. So you are associating yourself with that conscious principle. And again, we said Ha, Hakara here that starts with is the Shiva Tattva. Right? So it starts with Shiva and is showing how this journey is from the unmanifest to the manifest. So in this particular verse itself, the whole ornamentation is manifest, while the Ha, Hakara is the unmanifest. Right? So the unmanifest to the manifest is the process of Avyakta to Vyakta, is the process of Shiva to Shakti, is the process that we engage in our daily transactions, right? So it is important to know that our transactions or our engagement or our everything, starting from our thought to action, everything emanates from that stillness within us. And when we know it starts from that stillness, then we will know to go to that stillness. Only when you know where your house is, you will freely roam about anywhere. When you don't know where your house is, unless you're a parivrajaka or a wandering mendicant or a completely a sannyasi who's like a who's on the move, for generally for most of us, the ability for us to go roam about anywhere freely, that joy of roaming about freely comes when you know there is a home that you can return to. Otherwise it becomes a very random movement without knowing where you're heading to, where you're going. Exploration is best when you know where your home is. So you're here, from here you go explore, and then you come back here. And from here you go explore and you come back here. This is our experience, right? When you just for normally for most of us, that's the experience where we look at when we want to go someplace, we go and do it. When you can look at pets, குட்டி நாய் எல்லாம் கட்டி விட்டுருந்தான்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. If you have the small dogs that are leashed, you will see the smallest dogs will make the loudest noises. Damatun இருக்கும், it will be like so small, but it will keep shouting a lot. Knowing that it's leashed, knowing that it's the master is there and somebody is holding the leash. You let go, it will not know where to run, how far it will run. So that is how we are all. In many ways, we know that there is an anchor that we have. When you have that strong anchor, then you go and explore freely. You're able to explore freely. And that is Hamsa. Hamsa, or the Shiva Tattva, is essentially within us. That stillness within us is our home. So we should be able to rest and then go and explore, and then come back and rest and then go and explore. So the Hamsa, of course, is also related to breath, etc. So those we've spoken at different times. But here, the gait of the swan is also related to the movement of the breath. So her movement, Gamane, is, again, it is a representation. So when your breath moves in a very, very gentle pace, there's a certain calm beauty about it. When you watch something like a swan or something like a swan moving over water, when you look at it, you just observe it for a little while, you'll notice that the movement itself helps you align your breath. If you don't know any particular breathing exercises, the best thing is to observe something that moves very slowly. Something that moves very slowly, just observe it. Naturally, you will notice that your breath is slowing down, aligning to that pace of that movement. Conversely, you look at something that moves very fast, there's a lot of action, you will notice that your breath has also become fast. That is why action movies and all, you don't know there is a certain amount of palpitation that happens, right? There's too much of action. And then there's something very slow, you sleep off because your breath is now going into a very, very calm and a settled state. So the looking at the swan gives you that it creates a resonance within, where your breath comes to a very, very natural state of settling in. That is home. So when we settle in that hamsa, and that is why these references are made for that reason, right? When you go to a pond or a lake, watch this. If there is a small duck or a swan or some bird, a gentle bird sitting and slowly moving, use this opportunity to just observe it, right? We go to a lake or a pond or whatever, we immediately go take 4 pictures and put it onto Insta. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. Should sit there and let the waves, in fact, many times just observe gentle movement of the water. It'll help your breath come to a certain calm without think. Don't think. So this is important. When you're looking at that movement, you are only looking at that movement. You're not thinking about something else and looking at the movement. Then you're not looking. When you're looking, you're actually looking at the movement. Oh, it's moving like this. It's moving left. It's moving right. When you go to Rudraprayag, I remember this. We would sit at this place in Rudraprayag and just observe the water, Ganga flowing there. And you'll notice the movement of the water. Just observing the movement of the water creates a certain, an amazing calm that settles in. So you don't know how that is happening. It's natural. And you're not doing any kriya, any particular breathing exercise, nothing. You're just observing and you'll see that naturally your breath is aligning to that. This is the way we are tuned. We are naturally tuned. We're naturally tuned. But it's just that we don't pay enough attention to this, right? Which is where we get. So when we do this kind of an exercise, we look at this. This is one aspect of the swan. The other aspect is under the water. For the swan to stay on top of the water, there is a lot of paddling that happens underneath. There's a lot of paddling that happens, which means there's a lot of movement that is happening to stay afloat. What does that mean? It means to remain calm requires tremendous activity. What activity? The activity of paying attention, the activity of intent, focus. There's this Vietnamese Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. He would say this: paying attention is the greatest activity. You think you're running around here, you're doing this, I'm doing 10 things, 15 things, I'm so busy, this, that, and the other. He's saying that is not, you're just distracted and fragmented. If you want to know what real activity is, just pay attention to something. Continue to pay attention. It could be a breath. It could be something, you're looking at a tree and you're watching the leaves move. You're looking at something walking, or you're looking at a snail moving, or a worm moving. When you're paying intent attention and watching something, great amount of activity happens. So this is again similar to what happens to the hamsa. There's a lot of activity, but there is huge amount of calm at the surface, right? So a lot of these ideas are packed into this particular verse. All right. So this is the verse where we said is about Shiva. And interestingly, we are getting Shivaratri is coming around the corner. Okay, 26th is Mahashivaratri. And one thing I would like, if we can all practice, is one thought that occurred is we talk about avyakta to vyakta, right? Which is from unmanifest to the manifest. But what is manifest or what is form in our own experience, when you go and if you sit and meditate, you'll be able to visualize all kinds of forms. When you meditate, your mind will think about all kinds of forms. Try meditating on your form. See what happens when you think about yourself, and see what comes to mind. Does a specific form come to your mind when you think about yourself? It is very unlikely. Unless you're looking at the mirror and you're doing meditation with open eyes. You will not know what form to think about yourself, because in your own experience, you are not form. In our own experience, we are not form. We are that presence alone, that conscious presence. Think about it. It's very interesting, because we can think about everybody else in form. Your child, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, whatever, you can think about them in form. When you want to think about yourself, you will probably only remember the last time you saw yourself in the mirror, or you probably saw a photo of yours maybe just 5 minutes ago. Somebody asked you a passport photocopy, you sent it. Or in Zoom, you've been looking at your own image for a long time. Only some of these forms will come. You will not know this present form, what it is. You will not be able to visualize it. And that's a beautiful thing. Why I'm mentioning this is we use this as a tool or a way to recognize that I am not form. And then we stay with that understanding. And that is Shiva. That is Hamsaha. That is what it is. See, all the ornamentation that comes out, that is there. But where does it resolve into? That is what is important. It comes out from here, resolves back into this. Yeah. Yes, Mama.
எனக்கு இது மாதிரி நீ சொன்ன மாதிரி ஆயிருக்கு. எப்படி உட்காந்து பண்ணும்போது ஓகே லெட் மீ மெடிடேட் ஆன் ஃபார்ம். ஏன்னா ஃபார்ம் லிஸ்ட்டு மெடிடேட் பண்ணுறது இன்னும் அந்த அளவுக்கு சித்த சுத்தி வரல. லெட் மீ மெடிடேட் ஆன் அ ஃபார்ம் அப்படின்ட்டு ஓகே எனக்கு இன்னும் எல்லாம் சொல்லுவாரு த ஃபார்ம் விச் யூ லைக் த மோஸ்ட். ஓகே ஸோ பெருமாள் அப்படி அந்த ஃபார்ம்லெஸ் இன்னும் தட்ஸ் த ரீசன் வை உங்க முன்னாடி சொல்லியிருக்கேன். பெருமாளை பார்க்கும்போது ஐ வாண்டட் டு ஹேவ் த கம்ப்ளீட் ஃபார்ம் இன் மை மைண்ட். ஸோ அந்த ஃபார்மில் மெடிடேட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும்போது ஓகே let me see what I am doing அப்படின்ட்டு as if I am standing out near the door and looking at me sitting there and see what I am doing, you know, like நம்ம வந்து சிசிடிவி கேமராவில் நம்மளே அப்புறமா என்ன பார்க்குற மாதிரி. லெட் மீ அது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து ஏதோ ஓகே சம்திங் வந்து பட் ஐ ஐ குட் நாட் ஃபைண்ட் அது என்ன கரைஞ்சி போயிட்டேனா அப்படின்லாம் தோணும். vanish. I'm just trying to look at that form or whatever you said. நீங்க உட்காந்துருக்க மாதிரி இருக்கு, ஆனா நீங்க உட்காந்துருக்கேன் ஆனா இங்க இல்லாத மாதிரி இருக்கு, இப்படிலாம் தோன்றுறது. It was
Your
quite.
ability to grasp your own form will be very hard.
பட் இத்தனைக்கும் நான் வெளியில இருந்து இங்க உட்கார்ந்து அப்படி பார்க்கணும் அப்படிலாம் பார்க்கறேன் நான். பட் அது புலப்படலை அது. அப்புறம் சரின்னு விட்டேன்னு வச்சுக்கலாம். சரி ஓகே லெட் மீ ஃபர்கெட் இட் அப்படின்ட்டு. பிகாஸ் ஐ வாஸ் நாட் ஏபிள் டு see my form, it dropped, the mind dropped. Okay அப்படின்ட்டு then again reverted back to form.
Right.
இது வந்து இது நீ சொன்னவனே தான் ஸ்ட்ரைக் ஆகுது, ஞாபகம் வந்தது.
So it's a beautiful method to recognize that really I am not form. There's a very, very, very subtle method, but it's a very intimate experience if we can. And then when you realize that the mind now comes to terms with the fact that I am not able to grasp my own form, you drop the attempt and then you relax and rest in the presence. Just stay in that presence. Just stay in that presence. And then if you want to hold on to something, hold on to the breath and just stay in the presence. So that's beautiful. So let's try this for the Mahashivratri. Let's do this. Mahashivratri is what, another 5 more days. So let's practice this a little every day and drop yourself there and just stay in that and recognize that this presence is the thing that is existing here. You can't name it. It's no thing, which is why they call it as nothing, right? It's not nothing. It's no thing. It's not a particular thing. So you can't hold on to it like that. So you just let it be and then you rest into it, rest into that experience. And then we'll enjoy the Shivratri that's come. All right. ॐ कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि सदाशिवायेति समर्पयामि जगदम्बिकेति समर्पयामि सद्गुरुनाथायेति समर्पयामि हरि ओं तत्सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः Gurudeva. So that's the 6th verse we finished today. Thank you.